Ambassador Tella felt her wings tremble as she watched another world die. Through the observation window of the council chamber, the holographic display showed the planet Verdun burning. 6 billion Varani lived there yesterday. Now the Ravagers consumed everything, their biological ship spreading across the surface like a disease. The screams coming through the communication channels had stopped an hour ago. That meant everyone was dead. "We must negotiate," said Council Member Prith, his crystalline body flickering with nervous light pulses. "Perhaps they want resources. Territory, something we can offer." High Chancellor Oren dimmed his glow, a sign of deep sadness among the Lumarian species. "They have responded to every communication attempt with silence. We sent diplomats to 3 different Ravager swarms. None returned." Tella forced herself to speak, though her vocal cords felt tight with fear. "They don't want to talk. They want to feed. Admiral Reth's fleet tried to stop them at Verdun. We lost 300 ships in 4 hours." The council chamber fell silent. 300 ships represented 1/5 of the entire Galactic Union defense fleet. In 12,000 years of peaceful civilization, the Union had never faced such losses. They had never needed to. Every conflict in living memory had been resolved through discussion, trade agreements, or at worst, economic sanctions. Violence was something primitive species did before they learned better, but the Ravagers didn't care about civilization. "How long until they reach the core worlds?" asked Oren. Tella checked her data tablet, though she already knew the answer. She had memorized the numbers during countless sleepless nights. "At their current speed, 6 months. Maybe 7 if we evacuate the outer colonies and focus all defensive positions around the inner systems." "Evacuate?" Prith's light flickered red with anger. "We're talking about abandoning 200 billion citizens. Better alive and homeless than dead," Tella shot back. Her feathers ruffled, showing stress. Among her people, such a display was considered extremely rude in formal settings, but she was past caring about manners. "I've watched the tactical reports. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls. Our shields collapse under their acid spray within minutes. They reproduce faster than we can destroy them. We're not fighting a war. We're dying slowly." Admiral Reth entered the chamber then, his amphibious skin looking dry and flaky. The Aquarian had been in tactical meetings for 30 hours straight without rest. He moved to the center of the room and activated a new hologram. It showed a sector map of explored space with Union territory marked in blue. Red markers indicated Ravager attacks. The red was spreading like spilled blood across the map. "Chancellor, council members, I must inform you that I recommend immediate surrender," Reth said quietly. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several council members began speaking at once, but Oren raised a hand for silence. "Explain, Admiral. We cannot win. My best strategists have run 2,000 combat simulations. We lose in every single scenario. The Ravagers have no supply lines to disrupt, no homeworld we know of, and they turn our destroyed ships into more of themselves. Every battle makes them stronger and us weaker." Reth's throat sac inflated and deflated rapidly, his species equivalent of heavy breathing. "Surrender may not save us, but continued fighting definitely won't." Tella felt something break inside her chest. Hope maybe, or the last fragments of her belief that the universe was fair. She looked at the faces around her, seeing the same despair reflected in every set of eyes, in every dimmed light, in every drooping antenna. They were the leaders of 847 civilized worlds. They commanded technology that could reshape planets and extend life for centuries. They had achieved wonders beyond imagination, and now they were helpless. "There must be something," she whispered. "Some weapon we haven't considered. Some alliance we haven't asked for help." "We are the alliance," Prith said bitterly. "Every advanced species in known space is already part of the Union. There's no one left to ask." Tella's mind raced. She thought about the old databases, the historical archives she had studied as a young diplomat. The Union had explored thousands of systems over the millennia. Most were empty. Some had primitive life. A few had species that eventually joined the galactic community, and then there were the restricted files, the quarantined zones that citizens were forbidden from approaching. "What about the forbidden sectors?" she asked suddenly. Oren turned to her, his glow sharpening with interest. "Those systems are quarantined for good reasons, Ambassador. Extreme radiation, unstable stars, or worse, or dangerous species," Tella pressed. "I've seen the restricted files. There are at least a dozen worlds marked as extreme hazard, not because of environmental conditions, but because of what evolved there." Reth's throat sac deflated completely. "You're talking about the Deathworlds." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Deathworld was a term everyone knew but rarely spoke. It referred to planets so hostile that the dominant species evolved into something terrifying. High gravity that bred immense strength, aggressive predators that taught cunning and violence, harsh climates that forged ruthless survival instincts. The Union had encountered 3 Deathworld species in its history. 2 had destroyed themselves in nuclear wars before achieving spaceflight. The 3rd had been quietly isolated after their idea of friendly trade negotiations resulted in several dead diplomats. Which world? Orin asked carefully. Tella pulled up the file. Designation Sol 3. Common name Earth. Classification Class 12 Deathworld. Quarantined 807 years ago. The humans, Reth said, his voice barely audible. You want to ask the humans for help. I've read the reports, Tella continued, knowing she was probably suggesting something insane. They're aggressive, physically powerful, and their psychology is built around pack bonding and threat elimination. They're everything we're not. They're monsters, Prith said flatly. The quarantine report describes them as persistently violent with insufficient impulse control. They nearly started a war over a trade dispute. They killed 6 of our people because someone insulted their food, another council member added. Tella spread her wings wide, a gesture of desperate appeal. Right now, monsters are exactly what we need. The Ravagers don't fear us because we've been peaceful for 12,000 years. Maybe they'll fear someone who understands violence. The debate lasted another 3 hours. Finally, as dawn broke over the council chamber's location on the Lumerian homeworld, Orin made the decision. Ambassador Tella, you will take a fast courier ship to the Sol system. You will break quarantine and request aid from Earth. May the light guide you, because I fear nothing else will. 2 days later, Tella departed in a small, fast ship. She traveled alone because no one else volunteered. As she approached the jump point that would take her to human space, she reviewed the quarantine files one more time. Images of humans showed bipedal creatures covered in soft skin, with forward-facing predator eyes and mouths full of flat grinding teeth mixed with sharp tearing fangs. Their homeworld had gravity 30% higher than the Union standard. Their weather included electrical storms powerful enough to vaporize trees. Their ocean contained predators the size of spacecraft. And somehow the humans had not only survived but thrived. Her ship jumped and reality twisted. When normal space returned, a yellow star blazed ahead. Sol, and somewhere in the system, on the 3rd planet from that star, lived the monsters who might be her people's only hope. Tella activated her distress beacon and broadcast on all frequencies in every language the Union had on file. This is Ambassador Tella of the Galactic Union. I come seeking aid. We are dying. Please help us. Then she waited in the darkness, hoping the Deathworlders would answer before the Ravagers found them all. Pain woke Tella before consciousness fully returned. Everything felt wrong. Her bones ached as if someone had filled them with lead. Her wings refused to spread properly. Even breathing required twice the normal effort. She tried to open her eyes, but the light was too bright, making her pupils contract painfully. Easy now. You're safe. The voice came from somewhere above her, deep and rumbling in a way that made her prey instincts scream. Dr. Foster, she's waking up. Tella managed to force her eyes open. 2 massive shapes loomed over her. As her vision cleared, she realized they were humans. The smaller one, the female called Dr. Foster, stood at least twice Tella's height. The male beside her was even larger, with broad shoulders and arms that looked strong enough to tear metal. Both had those terrible forward-facing eyes that marked them as predator species. Where am I? Tella tried to sit up and failed. Her body simply wouldn't cooperate. Orbital Defense Station Olympus, Dr. Foster said, her voice gentler than Tella expected. You're in our medical bay. Don't try to move. You're experiencing the effects of Earth-standard gravity. Your ship's systems were failing, including the gravity generator, so we had to bring you here. Gravity, of course. Tella had read about Earth's crushing gravity in the files, but reading and experiencing were different things. She felt like she was being pressed into the medical bed by an invisible weight. My ship. The distress call? We received it, the male human said. I'm Roy Hughes, commander of this station. We've been monitoring your approach for the past 2 days. When your ship started breaking apart from the damage, we sent a retrieval team. 2 days? Tella's mind struggled to process. Why didn't you respond immediately? Roy and Dr. Foster exchanged a look. Because the last time we had contact with the Galactic Union, they made it very clear we weren't welcome. We've been quarantined for 800 years. Forgive us for being cautious when one of your ships suddenly appears asking for help. Shame burned through Tella's feathers. He was right. The Union had locked humanity away like dangerous animals and forgotten about them. Now she had come begging for those same dangerous animals to save her people. I understand. I'm sorry. We were wrong to quarantine your species. Dr. Foster made a strange sound halfway between a laugh and a sigh. We're used to it. Every species that meets us has the same reaction. We're too violent, too aggressive, too scary. It's fine, but it wasn't fine. Tella could hear the hurt beneath the words. These humans had been isolated for centuries because the Union feared them. I need to speak with your leaders. The situation is desperate. General Wade and President Brooks are on their way up from Earth, Roy said. They'll be here in 6 hours. Until then, rest. Dr. Foster can explain the gravity situation and help you adapt. After Roy left, Dr. Foster adjusted the medical bed, lowering Tella into a semi-reclined position that made breathing easier. Earth's gravity is 0.98 standard units. Your homeworld is 0.67, according to your medical files. Your body isn't designed for this kind of pressure. How do you live like this? Tella gasped. Don't you feel like you're being crushed every moment? Dr. Foster smiled, showing those omnivore teeth. This is normal for us. Actually, this station runs at 0.95 standard to make it easier for potential alien visitors. Earth's surface is even heavier. Tella tried to imagine living under such conditions for an entire lifetime. The humans moved easily. Their muscles strong enough to carry their own weight without thinking about it. What would it be like to be that strong? To have a body built for such a harsh world? Over the next few hours, Dr. Foster explained more about Earth. The hurricanes that could level cities. The earthquakes that reshaped continents. The temperature ranges that went from freezing to boiling. The predators that hunted in packs and the humans who had hunted them back. Every detail reinforced what Tella already knew. Earth was a nightmare world that had forged its inhabitants into something terrifying. When General Wade and President Brooks arrived, they brought several advisors and military personnel with them. Tella forced herself to sit upright despite the pain, wanting to show respect. Wade was older, his face marked with lines that spoke of hard experience. Brooks was younger but carried herself with authority that reminded Tella of Chancellor Oren. Ambassador Tella, Brooks said, sitting in a chair across from the medical bed. Commander Hughes briefed us on your arrival. Before we discuss your request for aid, I need to understand something. Why now? Why come to us after 8 centuries of silence? Tella had prepared for this question, but the words still came hard. Because we're dying. Because everything we believed about civilization and peace has failed. Because you're the only ones who might be able to stop what's killing us. She activated her data tablet, projecting the images into the air between them. The Ravagers consuming planets, the destroyed Union fleets, the casualty reports showing billions dead, the tactical projections showing total extinction within a year. The humans watched in silence. Tella saw no horror on their faces, just grim understanding. They had seen violence before. This was familiar territory for them in a way it would never be for her people. What are they? Wade asked finally. We call them Ravagers. They appeared 6 months ago from dark space. They consume everything organic and turn our destroyed ships into more of themselves. We've tried negotiating, but they don't respond. We've tried fighting, but we're losing every battle. Brooks leaned forward. And you think we can help because we're good at violence? It wasn't a question, but Tella answered anyway. Yes, I've read the quarantine reports. The incident that led to Earth's isolation involved a trade dispute where 6 Union diplomats died. Your species has a history of warfare, of fighting and surviving. We don't. We've been peaceful for 12,000 years. We've forgotten how to be anything else. We killed those diplomats because they were going to sell weapons to a terrorist group that had just bombed a school. Wade said quietly. 1,500 children died in that attack. When we found out your diplomats were involved in the arms deal, our people acted. It was illegal and it was wrong, but it came from a place of grief and rage, not random violence. Tella felt her understanding shift. The quarantine reports had never mentioned terrorism or dead children. They had only described humans as dangerously violent. The Union never told us that part. I'm sure they didn't, Brooks said. It's easier to call us monsters than to admit some of their own people were profiting from terrorism. But here's the important question. Even knowing what happened, even knowing we're capable of that kind of violence, do you still want our help? Tella met the president's eyes. Those predator eyes that had terrified her at first. Now she saw something else there. Not cruelty, but a fierce protective instinct. These humans had killed to protect their children. Maybe they would fight just as fiercely to protect the Union worlds. Yes, Tella said firmly. We need you, please. Wade and Brooke stepped aside with their advisors, speaking in low tones. Tella couldn't hear the words, but she could see the debate playing out in their gestures and expressions. Finally, they returned. We'll help, Brooke said. But understand this. If we commit to this fight, we commit fully. We don't do half measures. You're asking us to bring our capacity for violence to your war. That means people will die in ways you're not accustomed to. It means tactics that might seem brutal by your standards. It means accepting us as we truly are, not as you wish we were. I understand, Tella said, though she wasn't sure she really did. Good, Wade said. I'll contact Earth Defense Force Command. We can have an expeditionary fleet ready in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Tella couldn't hide her shock. The Union takes months to assemble a fleet. Wade smiled, but there was no humor in it. Ambassador, Earth has been preparing for war since the day you quarantined us. We didn't know who we'd eventually fight, but we knew someone would come eventually. We've had 800 years to get ready. As the humans left to begin preparations, Tella remained in the medical bay, processing everything. She had come seeking monsters to fight monsters. Instead, she had found people who understood both the necessity of violence and the responsibility that came with it. People who had been hurt by the Union's fear and judgment but were still willing to help. Dr. Foster returned to check on her. Feeling better? Physically, no, Tella admitted. This gravity is torture. But mentally, yes. I think we might survive this. We'll do everything we can, Dr. Foster promised. That's what humans do. When someone needs help, we show up, even if they pushed us away before. 2 weeks later, 12 human warships departed from Earth orbit. Tella watched from the flagship, her body slowly adapting to the heavy gravity. The ships were smaller than Union vessels, but moved with predatory grace. Each one was named after something violent: retribution, vengeance, havoc. As they jumped toward Union space, Tella allowed herself to hope. The Deathworlders were coming. Perhaps they would bring total annihilation, but not to her people. To the enemy that had threatened everything she loved, the Ravagers were about to learn what happened when you threatened a species under humanity's protection. Admiral Sarah Pine reviewed the tactical display in her private quarters, while the fleet moved through jump space toward Union territory. She had commanded vessels for 23 years, fought pirates in the outer colonies, and hunted down rogue AI ships in the asteroid belt. Nothing in that experience had prepared her for leading humanity's first major military action beyond Sol system in 8 centuries. Her communication panel chimed. Commander Leo Grant from the Retribution wanted to talk. She accepted the call, and his face appeared on the screen. Admiral, we have a situation. Not an emergency, just something you should see. Show me. The display changed to show the ship's training deck. Human Marines were running combat drills as they did every day, but this time they had an audience. Ambassador Tella and 3 other Union observers stood at the edge of the training area, watching with what Sarah could only describe as horror. On the display, 2 Marines grappled in hand-to-hand combat. One twisted and threw the other hard enough that she hit the padded wall with an audible impact. Both immediately got up and continued fighting. They've been watching for 30 minutes, Leo said. Haven't said a word, but Tella looks like she's going to faint. Sarah sighed. They had warned the Union observers that human training might be disturbing to watch, but apparently words couldn't convey the reality. I'll talk to them. Pine out. She made her way to the training deck. The observers didn't notice her arrival, too focused on the Marines. Sergeant Rita Barnes was instructing a newer recruit on proper knife-fighting techniques. The practice knives were dull, but the techniques were real. The recruit took a simulated stab to the abdomen and dropped to the mat. Dead, Rita said flatly. You dropped your guard. In real combat, that mistake costs everything. Get up, again. The recruit rose, rubbing his stomach where the blow had landed. Sarah knew it would bruise badly. That was the point. Pain taught lessons that words couldn't. Ambassador, Sarah said quietly, announcing her presence. Tella jumped, her feathers puffing out in surprise. Admiral Pine, I didn't hear you approach. It's the gravity boots, Sarah explained. Magnetic. Keeps us stable during ship maneuvers. But I wanted to check on you. Commander Grant mentioned you were observing our training. Yes, Tella said weakly. Is it always this violent? This is actually one of our gentler sessions, Sarah said truthfully. No live ammunition, no simulated casualties, no pressure testing. This is basics. One of the other observers, a Lumarian named Brex, flickered with agitated colors. That recruit suffered what appeared to be significant injury. Why doesn't he stop? Doesn't it hurt? Of course it hurts, Sarah said. But pain is part of the learning. Our bodies can handle it. Humans heal quickly compared to most species, and we have a high pain tolerance. That recruit will have a bruise for a week, but he'll also remember to keep his guard up. This seems cruel, Tella said softly. Sarah considered her response carefully. She didn't want to offend the ambassador, but Tella needed to understand. By your standards, maybe it is. But we're not training for peace negotiations. We're training to fight an enemy that wants to consume you alive. That recruit needs to know what combat feels like before he faces it for real. Better a bruise now than death later. On the mat, Rita had moved to weapons training. Marines practiced firing patterns with mass accelerator rifles. The targets were holographic Ravagers based on the tactical data the Union had provided. Each target took multiple shots to bring down. And Rita pushed her people to maintain accuracy while moving, while under stress, while simulating combat conditions. They practiced killing, another observer whispered. An Aquarian female named Mira. Yes, Sarah admitted. That's exactly what they practice. Because when we reach Union space, they'll need to do it for real. She watched the observers struggle with this reality. Their civilizations had evolved beyond warfare. Violence was something that happened in history lessons, not in daily training. The idea that humans prepared for combat every single day, that they drilled and practiced taking life, was fundamentally alien to them. How do you live like this? Tella asked. Knowing that you train your people to kill? Sarah thought about her answer. Because someone has to. You called us because your people couldn't fight the Ravagers. We can. Not because we're evil or monstrous, but because we never forgot that the universe can be hostile. Earth taught us that lesson every day. Storms that could kill us. Animals that hunted us. Disease, famine, natural disasters. We survived by being tougher than our environment. By learning to fight back. She led the observers away from the training deck to the observation lounge. Through the reinforced windows, they could see the other ships in the fleet. Each one bristled with weapon systems that the Union had banned centuries ago as too destructive. Kinetic accelerators that could punch through mountains, plasma lances hot enough to vaporize metal, missile pods filled with fusion warheads. Your technology is so far beyond ours, Brex said, his colors shifting to confused purple. We've had faster-than-light travel for 12,000 years. You've had it for less than 1,000. How did you advance so quickly? Necessity, Sarah said. When you're alone in the galaxy, when you know that the species out there are afraid of you, you prepare. We spent 800 years developing weapons, defenses, and tactics. Not because we wanted war, but because we knew peace wouldn't last forever. Over the next few days, Sarah made sure the observers saw other aspects of human life. Dr. Oliver Nash showed them the weapons labs where human scientists developed new technologies. The observers were shocked that humans encouraged their scientists to create more efficient ways to destroy things. Tella asked why they didn't focus solely on peaceful applications of technology. Nash had laughed. Because dual-use technology is real. The same plasma torch that can cut through a Ravager hull can also be used in construction and mining. The same targeting AI that guides our missiles can be used for navigation and asteroid tracking. We don't make weapons because we love death. We make them because they're tools, and tools can be used for different purposes. Tella spent time with the medical staff, learning about human biology. Dr. Foster explained their redundant organs, their accelerated healing, their ability to function with significant injuries that would kill most species. The ambassador seemed particularly fascinated by human psychological resilience. You experienced trauma, Tella said during one of their conversations. I've read about post-traumatic stress disorder. Your soldiers can be deeply affected by combat. Yes, Dr. Foster agreed. Combat hurts us mentally as well as physically. But humans have an impressive ability to recover. We process trauma, we support each other, and we keep going. It's not that we don't feel pain or fear. It's that we've learned to function despite it. One evening, Tella found herself in the ship's recreation area. Off-duty personnel were relaxing, playing games, listening to music. One group was watching an old Earth movie, some kind of historical drama about ancient warfare. The violence on screen made Tella look away, But the humans watched it casually while eating snacks and laughing at jokes she didn't understand. Leo Grant sat down beside her, holding 2 drinks. He offered one to Tella. "It's juice, not alcohol. Figured you might want something familiar." "Thank you," Tella said, accepting the drink. "Commander, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why did you volunteer for this mission? You could have stayed on Earth. You have family there, don't you?" Leo nodded. "A daughter. She's 12. Smart kid, wants to be a xenobiologist like Dr. Foster." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I volunteered because she deserves to grow up in a galaxy where humanity has friends, not just enemies. Your people called us for help. If we prove ourselves now, maybe the next generation won't be quarantined. Maybe they'll get to explore the stars without everyone being afraid of them." "You fight for the future," Tella said softly. "Doesn't everyone?" Leo looked at her seriously. "You're doing the same thing. You risked breaking quarantine because you wanted to save your people. That took courage. Coming to the species everyone fears and asking for help. That's brave, Ambassador." Tella felt tears forming in her eyes, though humans probably couldn't tell. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Terrified of the Ravagers. Terrified of what your people are capable of. Terrified that I've made a terrible mistake." "Fear is normal," Leo said. "We're scared too. Going into battle against an enemy we've never faced, using tactics we've only simulated, risking lives for people who aren't even our species. That's scary, but fear doesn't have to stop us. Sometimes it drives us forward." As the fleet continued toward Union space, Sarah noticed changes in the observers. They still flinched at the violence of human training, still struggled with the weapons development, still questioned the military culture. But they also began to understand. Humanity's capacity for violence came from the same place as their capacity for protection. They were fierce because Earth had made them fierce. They were strong because they'd had to be. On the final day before arrival, Sarah gathered all personnel for a briefing. The observers attended as well, wanting to understand human tactical planning. The holographic display showed their destination. Pella, a Union colony world under siege by Ravager forces. "Intelligence reports indicate approximately 5,000 Ravager bioships in orbit," Sarah explained. "The Union defense fleet is in retreat. Civilian evacuations are incomplete. We're going in outnumbered 400 to 1. A ripple of understanding moved through the human crew. Those weren't good odds by anyone's standards, but Sarah saw no fear in their faces, only determination. "Our objective is simple," Sarah continued. "Destroy the Ravager fleet, protect the civilians, show the Union and the Ravagers that humanity stands with the innocent. We've trained for this. We're ready for this. When we come out of jump space tomorrow, we hit them hard and we hit them fast. No mercy for the enemy. No hesitation. We are Earth Defense Force, and we will show them what Deathworlders can do." The crew responded with a roar of approval that made the observers jump. Tella watched the humans, seeing the transformation from the friendly, helpful people she'd come to know into something harder, something dangerous. These were warriors, preparing for battle, and she finally understood what that truly meant. As the briefing ended and personnel returned to their duties, Tella approached Sarah one last time. "Admiral, I need to know. When we arrive at Pella, what will you do?" Sarah met her eyes without flinching. "Whatever it takes to win, Ambassador." Whatever it takes. Reality twisted as the human fleet dropped out of jump space. Tella's stomach lurched despite the inertial dampeners. Through the view screen, she saw Pella burning. The colony world she had visited twice before as a diplomat now looked like a vision from nightmare. Ravager bioships swarmed around the planet like insects around rotting fruit. Orbital stations fell from the sky, trailing fire. The Union defense fleet fled in disarray, leaving thousands of civilian transports undefended. "Ravager count, 4,937, called out the sensor operator. "Union vessels, 83, most damaged. Civilian craft, too many to count individually, estimate 12,000. Admiral Sarah Pine stood at the center of the command deck, her posture relaxed in a way that seemed impossible given the situation. "Tactical, paint me a picture. Where are they thickest?" The tactical display updated, showing Ravager concentrations. The heaviest swarm surrounded a cluster of civilian evacuation ships near the planet's northern pole. As Tella watched, One of the bioships fired its acid spray at a transport. The civilian vessel's shields lasted 3 seconds before collapsing. The hull began dissolving. "There," Sarah said, pointing. "We hit that concentration first. All ships, full combat speed, weapons free. Show them what we brought." The human fleet accelerated. Tella felt the pressure even through the dampeners. The speed was insane, far faster than Union vessels could manage. They closed the distance to the Ravager swarm in less than 2 minutes. At this range, Tella could see individual bioships. They looked like massive sea creatures, all tentacles and chitin plates but scaled up to the size of buildings. Acid glands pulsed visibly beneath translucent skin. "Firing," announced the weapons officer. The Retribution shuddered as its main kinetic accelerator fired. Tella had read the specifications but hadn't understood what they meant. Now she did. The projectile was a solid tungsten rod weighing 2 tons, accelerated to 40% of light speed. When it hit the nearest Ravager ship, the bioship simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy vaporized it instantly, and the expanding plasma cloud destroyed 3 more Ravagers nearby. "Target destroyed," the weapons officer reported calmly, as if he hadn't just erased 4 ships from existence with 1 shot. The other human vessels opened fire. Plasma lances turned Ravager hulls into superheated gas. Missile pods launched fusion warheads that detonated in brilliant flowers of destruction. Point defense systems created a sphere of death around each human ship, automatically targeting and destroying anything that came close. The Ravagers swarmed toward the human fleet, using the same tactics that had overwhelmed Union forces. They surrounded their enemy, attacked from all sides, and sprayed acid in overlapping fields of fire. It was a proven strategy. It had worked against every Union fleet they'd encountered. It didn't work against humans. "All ships acceleration to combat maximum," Sarah ordered. "We're going in." "Admiral, they're trying to surround us," warned the tactical officer. "Let them try." The human fleet didn't retreat. They accelerated directly into the Ravager swarm. Tella watched in horror as the bioships closed around them like a fist. This was suicide. The Union had tried this tactic before. The Ravagers would trap them, disable their engines, and dissolve the hulls with acid spray. Then the humans showed what their ships could really do. The Retribution spun on its axis while maintaining forward velocity, a maneuver that should have torn the ship apart. Instead, the inertial dampeners held, and the ship's dorsal weapons came to bear on the Ravagers that had been above them. The plasma lances fired in a continuous beam, cutting through bioship after bioship. At the same time, the ventral weapons targeted below, and the port and starboard weapons swept the sides. The human ships moved through the Ravager swarm like predators through prey. Every direction was a firing angle. Every weapon system operated independently. The bioships that managed to hit human shields found them far stronger than Union technology. The acid that could eat through Union hulls in minutes barely scarred the human ablative armor. "Ravager forces adapting," reported the tactical officer. "They're concentrating fire on single targets." "Good," Sarah said. "That means they're scared. Commander Grant, you're the bait. Lead them on a chase." Through the communication channel, Leo Grant's voice came back. "Acknowledged. Retribution breaking formation. Come and get us, you ugly bugs." The Retribution accelerated away from the main fleet, and a significant portion of the Ravager swarm followed. Tella understood the tactic immediately. Draw them away, divide their forces and eliminate them in smaller groups. It was basic strategy, but it required the bait ship to survive against overwhelming numbers. The Retribution could survive. Tella watched as Leo's ship led the Ravagers on a deadly dance through space. Every time the bioships got close, the point defense systems shredded them. Every time they tried to surround the ship, Leo changed vector with acceleration that would have killed a Union crew. The humans aboard endured forces that should have turned them to pulp, protected by their dampeners and their own biological resilience. Meanwhile, the rest of the human fleet systematically destroyed the Ravagers protecting the civilian transports. Sarah coordinated the attack with cold precision, directing fire to maximize efficiency. No wasted shots. No hesitation. Within 20 minutes, the northern concentration was eliminated. Civilian transports are clear, reported sensors. Their beginning jump sequence. Good, Sarah said. All ships except Retribution form on me. We're going after the main hive. Tella accessed her tablet, pulling up the tactical data. The main hive was a Ravager command ship, 10 times larger than the standard bioships. It sat in high orbit, spawning new units from its internal breeding chambers. Union intelligence estimated it could produce 100 new ships per day. Admiral, that's impossible, Tella found herself saying. The hive ships are too well defended. We've lost entire fleets trying to destroy them. Sarah looked at her and Tella saw something in the human's eyes. Not anger, but a fierce joy. This was what Sarah had been made for, what Earth had shaped her to do. Watch, Sarah said simply. The human fleet converged on the hive ship. Thousands of Ravagers moved to intercept, but the humans had already adapted to their tactics. The bioships couldn't match human speed or maneuverability. They couldn't penetrate human shields quickly enough. And their acid spray, while devastating to Union technology, was just another weapon to counter with the right defensive systems. Retribution? Status? Sarah asked. Still alive, still dancing, Leo replied. His ship appeared on the display, trailing a mass of destroyed Ravagers. Ready to rejoin formation on your mark. Stand by. The human fleet reached the hive ship. Up close, it was truly massive, big enough to house a small city inside its organic structure. Breeding chambers pulsed visibly through translucent sections of hull. Acid glands the size of buildings tracked the approaching human ships. All vessels coordinated strike on my mark, Sarah said. Target the breeding chambers. Hit them hard enough and the whole thing dies. 3, 2, 1, mark. Every human ship fired simultaneously. Kinetic rounds traveling at relativistic speeds punched through the hive ship's exterior armor. Plasma lances cut deep into its internal structure. Fusion missiles detonated inside the breeding chambers, destroying the Ravager reproductive organs. The hive ship died slowly. Its biological systems tried to seal the breaches, but the damage was catastrophic. Tella watched as the massive creature convulsed, its tentacles flailing uselessly. Then it began breaking apart, internal pressure rupturing the damaged sections. Hive ship destroyed, confirmed sensors. Remaining Ravager forces breaking off. For the first time in recorded history, the Ravagers retreated. Their swarm turned away from Pella and jumped out of the system, fleeing from an enemy they couldn't defeat. Damage report, Sarah requested. All ships operational. Hull integrity at 82% average. Casualties 23 dead, 224 wounded. Tella felt her legs give out. She caught herself on a nearby console, barely staying upright. 247 casualties, and the humans considered that acceptable. They had faced overwhelming odds and expected to lose people. This was normal for them. Admiral Reth's face appeared on the communication screen. The Aquarian commander looked haggard but alive. Human fleet, this is Admiral Reth of the Union Defense Force. We don't know what to say. You saved thousands of lives today. Thank you. We're just getting started, Admiral, Sarah replied. We're here to end this threat permanently. But right now we need to recover our wounded and repair our ships. Can you provide support? Whatever you need, Reth promised. I'll contact the planetary government. They'll want to thank you personally. As the communication ended, Sarah turned to her crew. Well done, everyone. First battle against an unknown enemy and we dominated. But stay sharp. The Ravagers will adapt to our tactics. Next time will be harder. The crew responded with determined nods. They understood. This was just the beginning. Later in the medical bay, Tella visited the wounded. She expected to find broken people, traumatized by their first combat. Instead, she found humans joking with each other, comparing injuries like they were sharing stories. One Marine had lost an arm below the elbow and was already asking when the prosthetic would be ready, so he could return to duty. Sergeant Rita Barnes sat up in her bed despite having 3 cracked ribs. Ambassador, we won, didn't we? Kicked those bugs back to whatever hole they crawled from. You did, Tella confirmed. You were magnificent. And terrifying. I don't think I'll ever forget watching your fleet move through that swarm. Rita grinned. That's what we do. Earth made us tough, so we use that strength to protect others. Simple as that? Simple, Tella repeated. But it wasn't simple at all. These humans had risked their lives for people they barely knew, had endured terrible injuries without complaint, and were already preparing to do it again. They were the most dangerous species she'd ever encountered, and also the most heroic. Through the medical bay window, she could see Pella slowly recovering. Fires were being extinguished. Rescue operations continued. The Union fleet regrouped and began search and rescue. And above it all, 12 human warships stood guard, making sure the Ravagers didn't return. The Deathworlders had come. They had brought total annihilation, but not to her people. To the enemy, and Tella finally understood what it meant to be humanity's ally. It meant being protected by the most fearsome guardians in the galaxy. 4 months after the Battle of Pella, the war had transformed. Professor Cyrus Webb stared at his research data for the 100th time, certain he wasn't imagining the pattern. Around him, the converted cargo bay that served as his laboratory hummed with equipment. Union scientists worked alongside human researchers, a cooperation that would have been impossible before the Ravagers forced everyone to adapt. Tell me I'm not crazy, Cyrus said to his assistant, a young Lumerian named Fell who had volunteered for the human fleet after Pella. Fell examined the data streams, his crystalline body flickering thoughtfully. The pattern is clear. Ravager bioships within the same swarm react to threats with less than 0.03 seconds delay. That's faster than any known biological communication. Exactly, Cyrus said, excitement building. They're not using radio waves or laser communication. They're using quantum entanglement. The swarm shares one consciousness across multiple ships instantaneously, which means if we can disrupt that connection, the swarm becomes thousands of individual ships with no coordination. Cyrus pulled up new calculations. They'd be vulnerable, confused. We could win battles without firing a shot. Fell's glow turned doubtful blue. Union physicists tried to build quantum disruptors for decades. The technology is theoretically possible, but practically impossible. The precision required exceeds our manufacturing capabilities. Cyrus smiled. Good thing we've got human engineers then. They specialize in making the impossible routine. 3 weeks later, the prototype disruptor sat in the Retribution's cargo bay. It looked like a massive sphere covered in focusing crystals, each one calibrated to within a millionth of a millimeter. Dr. Oliver Nash had led the engineering team, working 20-hour days to make Cyrus's theory into reality. Commander Leo Grant inspected the device with his usual skepticism. Doc, you're telling me this thing will break the Ravager's hive-mind connection? In theory, Cyrus admitted. We won't know for sure until we test it in actual combat. That's what I love about scientists, Leo said dryly. Always so confident. The test came at the Battle of Three Suns, a triple-star system where the Union had established mining colonies. Intelligence reported the largest Ravager swarm yet assembling there, over 15,000 bioships. Admiral Sarah Pine had requested reinforcements from Earth, and Second Fleet had arrived with another 15 warships. The combined human force of 27 vessels would face an enemy outnumbering them 500 to 1. Admiral Kellen Stone commanded Second Fleet from the carrier Dauntless. His ship held something new, fighter craft piloted by humans with reflexes quick enough to handle individual combat. The fighters were tiny compared to capital ships, but fast enough to dodge Ravager acid spray. Lieutenant Iris Yamada sat in her fighter's cockpit, running pre-flight checks. At 26, she was the youngest pilot in the squadron and the best. She had to be. She'd grown up on Mars in the lower gravity colonies, giving her even faster reflexes than Earth-born humans. Other species would have been crushed by the acceleration her fighter could produce. For Iris, it was just another day. All fighters launch in 30 seconds, came the command. Remember, you're drawing fire away from the capital ships. Don't be heroes, Iris grinned. Not being a hero sounded boring. The combined fleet dropped out of jump space directly into the Ravager swarm. The bioships reacted instantly, moving with the coordinated precision that had destroyed so many Union fleets. They formed a sphere around the human vessels, preparing to crush them from all sides simultaneously. Disruptor ready, Cyrus reported from his station aboard the Retribution. Activating in 3, 2, 1, now. The device hummed to life, generating a quantum field that expanded outward at the speed of light. When it touched the Ravager bioships, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The coordinated swarm fell apart. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly drifted randomly. Some collided with each other. Others fired weapons at empty space, their targeting systems confused. It's working, Fell said, his glow turning excited yellow. The hive mind connection is disrupted. They're operating as individuals now. All ships weapons free, Sarah commanded. Take them apart. The battle became a slaughter. Ravagers that had been terrifying when coordinated were just animals now, acting on instinct without strategy. The human fleet carved through them systematically. Kinetic rounds found targets that no longer dodged. Plasma lances cut through bioships that had forgotten to raise their chitin shields. Fusion missiles struck breeding ships that didn't coordinate point defense. But even confused, 15,000 ships were still dangerous. A group of Ravagers stumbled into firing range of the Dauntless, their acid spray hitting the carrier's shields by accident rather than design. The shields held, but the carrier's fighter bay took damage. Iris and her squadron were already in space, but the other squadrons couldn't launch. Fighter Squadron Alpha, we need you to provide close-in defense for Dauntless, Kellen ordered. Those Ravagers are bunched up around the launch bay. Copy that, Iris replied. She pushed her fighter to maximum acceleration, feeling the pressure even through the inertial dampeners. Her vision narrowed slightly, a sign she was pulling forces near the human tolerance limit. Perfect. The Ravager bioships were massive compared to her fighter. She was a mosquito attacking elephants, but mosquitoes could kill if they hit the right spots. Iris dove toward the nearest bioship, her targeting computer identifying weak points. The acid glands. The sensory organs. The joints where tentacles connected to the main body. Her plasma cannons fired in rapid bursts. Small weapons compared to capital ship armaments, but precise. She hit an acid gland and the bioship convulsed as its own acid burned through internal tissues. She hit a sensory cluster and the creature went blind on one side. She hit a tentacle joint and the limb went limp. 1 down, 50 to go, she muttered. No problem. The other pilots in her squadron followed her lead, attacking with the precision that only individual fighters could provide. They were too small and fast for the Ravagers to target effectively, especially with the hive mind disrupted. Within 15 minutes, they'd cleared the space around Dauntless. Good work, Alpha Squadron, Kellen said. Regroup for Iris, what are you doing? Iris had noticed something. One Ravager bioship was different from the others, larger, with more sensory organs. And even in the confusion of the disrupted hive mind, the other ships seemed to orient toward it. A command ship maybe, or something important? Just checking something, Iris said. She accelerated toward the large bioship, studying its structure. There, an intake port, probably for drawing in organic matter to fuel its biological processes. It was big enough for her fighter. Lieutenant Yamada, do not engage that ship alone, Sarah's voice cut in. That's an order. Copy that, Admiral, Iris said. Then she cut her communication and dove toward the intake port. Her fighter was small enough to fit, barely. She flew into the bioship's internal structure, her sensors going crazy from the organic readings. Everything was alive around her. The walls pulsed. Fluids flowed through channels like blood vessels. Ahead, she could see what looked like a central chamber, glowing with bioluminescent organs. This is really stupid, she told herself. Then she armed her entire missile payload and fired straight into the glowing chamber. The explosions lit up the bioship's interior like a sun. Iris threw her fighter into a tight turn, racing back toward the intake port. Behind her, secondary explosions rippled through the ship's systems. She burst out of the intake port just as the entire bioship began tearing itself apart from within. Her communication crackled back to life. Iris, if you ever pull something like that again, I'll ground you for a year, Sarah said. Worth it, Iris replied, watching the command ship die. As it did, several hundred nearby Ravagers seemed to become even more confused, no longer having even the basic coordination the disrupted hive mind had left them. Besides, it worked. The Battle of Three Suns lasted 6 hours total. When it ended, the Ravager swarm was destroyed. Human casualties were lighter than expected. 1 ship moderately damaged, 412 wounded, 37 dead. The Union forces that had arrived to support them hadn't even needed to fire a shot. Admiral Reth contacted Sarah after the battle. "Admiral Pine, your Professor Webb's disruptor changes everything. With that technology, we can actually win this war." "We can," Sarah agreed. "But we still need to find their homeworld. As long as they can keep spawning new swarms, they'll keep coming." That night in the Retribution's observation lounge, Tella found Leo looking at old pictures on his personal tablet. His daughter, she realized. The girl had gotten older in the 4 months since the fleet left Earth. "Missing home?" Tella asked. Leo nodded. "Always. But we're doing good work here. Every world we save, every Ravager we stop, that's a future where my daughter doesn't have to fight this war." "You're a good father," Tella said. "I'm a father who's not there," Leo replied. "But I'm making sure she has a safe galaxy to grow up in. That's something." Tella thought about her own people back in Union space, worlds that were rebuilding after Ravager attacks, families reuniting after the human fleet had saved them, children who would grow up knowing that the scary species from the quarantined world had come to help when no one else could. Over the next 2 months, the Human-Union Alliance won battle after battle. The quantum disruptor made Ravager coordination impossible. Human tactics kept adapting to counter any individual bioship behaviors, and Union forces, inspired by human determination, started fighting more effectively. But everyone knew the war wasn't over. The Ravagers kept coming, spawning new swarms from some hidden location. Intelligence teams worked around the clock to find the source. Finally, they did. Chancellor Oren contacted the fleet with the news. "We found it. The Ravager homeworld, a massive organic planet they call the Maw, hidden in the Void Nebula. It's spawning new swarms constantly. If we don't destroy it, this war will never end." Sarah looked at the data with grim determination. The Maw was defended by thousands of Ravagers, located in a region of space where sensors barely functioned. Reaching it would be difficult. Fighting through the defenses would be costly. And destroying an entire world, even an enemy world, was something that weighed heavily on her conscience. "How soon can we assemble a full strike force?" Sarah asked. 3 weeks, Oren replied. "We'll commit everything we have. Union and human forces together. One final battle to end the threat forever." After the communication ended, Sarah sat alone in her quarters. Destroying worlds. That's what humans had done once before, back in Earth's darkest days when nuclear weapons nearly wiped out their own civilization. They had learned better since then. They had grown beyond that casual destruction. But sometimes survival required hard choices. She pulled up the files on the Maw, a living planet, billions of Ravager organisms forming one massive entity. If they destroyed it, they'd be committing genocide. But if they didn't, the Ravagers would eventually consume every Union world. There was no good choice, only the choice between terrible options. Sarah made her decision and began planning for the final battle. The combined fleet gathered at the edge of the Void Nebula, like a force of nature preparing to strike. 43 human warships and 800 Union vessels, representing every species in the Galactic Union. It was the largest military force assembled in 12,000 years, and all of it was aimed at one target, the Maw. Sergeant Rita Barnes checked her equipment one final time. She led a ground assault team, volunteers who would land on the Maw's surface to destroy spawning chambers from within. It was the kind of mission where survival wasn't guaranteed. Her Marines knew the risks. They came anyway. "Sergeant, you don't have to do this," said a young Union soldier, a Varani named Kless who had joined the human forces after Pella. "The Union can send automated drones for the ground assault." Rita smiled and sealed her helmet. "Kid, if we're going to kill a planet, the least we can do is look it in the eye while we do it. Besides, drones can't adapt when things go wrong. People can." The fleet entered the nebula in formation. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Sensors struggled through the interference. Navigation relied on gravitational readings and careful plotting. It took 6 hours to reach the inner system where the Maw waited. When they finally got close enough for visual confirmation, even the humans fell silent. The Maw wasn't just a planet. It was a living horror beyond imagination. The entire world pulsed with biological activity. Continents of flesh stretched across its surface. Oceans of organic fluid flowed between breeding chambers the size of mountain ranges. And surrounding it in orbit, thousands upon thousands of Ravager bioships waited like antibodies protecting a diseased organism. Target count, 14,962, reported the sensor operator, his voice tight. That's not a defense fleet. That's their entire remaining military force. Admiral Kellen Stone contacted Sarah from the Dauntless. Admiral Pine, this is it. Everything they have left. If we win here, the war is over. And if we lose, there's no one left to stop them, Sarah replied. She looked around her command deck, seeing determination on every face, human and Union personnel alike. They'd fought together for months now, bled together, some had died together. Now they would finish it together. All ships battle formation, fighters launch, ground assault teams prepare for deployment. Sarah's voice carried across every ship in the fleet. I won't lie to you. A lot of us won't make it home. But those who do will know they saved a galaxy, for Earth, for the Union, for everyone who can't fight for themselves. Attack! The fleet surged forward. The Ravagers responded immediately, their swarm moving to intercept. Even disrupted by Cyrus's quantum disruptor, 14,000 ships were overwhelming odds. But the combined fleet had learned to fight together. Human vessels formed the spearhead, their superior weapons and shields breaking through the first waves. Union ships provided covering fire and coordinated targeting, their numbers making up for their weaker individual power. The battle spread across thousands of kilometers of space. Kinetic rounds created temporary suns as they vaporized bioships. Plasma lances drew lines of destruction through the Ravager swarm. Fusion missiles detonated in clusters, each explosion taking out dozens of targets. Commander Leo Grant's Retribution led the charge, his ship taking fire from hundreds of Ravagers simultaneously. The shields held barely, hull armor ablated away in layers, designed to sacrifice itself to protect the crew within. Leo kept pushing forward, ordering weapons to fire in all directions, turning his ship into a sphere of destruction. Hull integrity at 60%, reported his tactical officer. We can't take much more of this. We don't have to take much more, Leo said. We just have to hold long enough for the ground teams to deploy. Rita's assault transport was one of 20 trying to reach the Maw's surface. Half were destroyed before even entering the atmosphere. The biological world fought back, launching acid sprays and organic missiles at anything approaching. Rita's transport took a hit that tore away part of the hull. 3 Marines were lost before emergency seals engaged. Still flying, the pilot reported grimly. Barely. They hit the atmosphere hard, the transport shaking violently. Rita looked out the window and immediately wished she hadn't. The surface of the Maw was worse up close. Mountains of flesh rose and fell like breathing. Rivers of organic fluid flowed through channels carved in the planetary tissue. And everywhere, spawning chambers pulsed with new bioships in various stages of development. Landing zone ahead, the pilot called. Hold on! The transport crashed more than landed, skidding across the living surface before coming to rest. Rita and her team deployed immediately, weapons ready. The air was toxic, requiring sealed environment suits. The ground squished beneath their boots, soft and yielding like walking on fresh meat. Spawning chamber Delta is 2 kilometers north, Rita said, checking her navigation. Move out. They ran across the alien landscape, every step a reminder that they were assaulting a living world. The Maw fought back. Tentacles erupted from the ground, trying to grab the Marines. Acid sprayed from hidden glands. The very terrain shifted, trying to swallow them. Rita's team fought through it all. They fired incendiary rounds that burned through organic tissue. They used plasma cutters to sever tentacles. They dodged acid and kept moving, driven by training and determination and the knowledge that failure meant everyone they loved would eventually die. Above them, the space battle raged. Leo's Retribution finally took critical damage to its engines. The ship was effectively dead, floating in space while Ravagers closed in for the kill. Leo ordered all non-essential personnel to evacuation pods. Captain, you need to evacuate too, his executive officer said. Someone needs to keep the weapons firing, Leo replied. Get everyone else out, that's an order. The executive officer wanted to argue but didn't. Time was too short. He gathered the crew and began evacuation while Leo stayed at the weapons console, manually targeting Ravagers. His ship couldn't move, but it could still shoot. Each salvo bought more time for the ground teams. Each destroyed bioship was one less threat to the fleet. On the surface, Rita reached the spawning chamber. It was massive, a cavern in the Maw's flesh where dozens of new bioships grew like tumors. Her team placed fusion charges at structural points identified by Union scientists. The charges would trigger a cascade failure, destroying not just this chamber but destabilizing the surrounding tissue. Charges set, Rita reported. Extraction? Negative, came Sarah's voice over the command channel. All assault transports are destroyed or damaged. Ground teams, you need to get clear on foot. We'll extract you once the charges blow. Rita did the math in her head. They had 18 minutes until detonation. The nearest safe distance was 30 kilometers. No human could run that far that fast, especially not in toxic atmosphere on unstable terrain. Understood, Rita said calmly. All teams, execute and evac. Move with purpose. Her Marines ran. They ran like their lives depended on it, because they did. Behind them, other teams across the Maw's surface were doing the same thing, racing against time and biology and the certainty of physics. In space, Admiral Sarah Pine made the hardest decision of her life. They couldn't destroy the Maw with conventional weapons. The planet was too large, too resilient. Dr. Oliver Nash had proposed a solution, a star-killer torpedo, experimental technology that could destabilize a planet's core. It would work, but it would also obliterate everything within a vast radius, including the ground teams. Deploy the torpedo, Sarah ordered. Nash activated the weapon. It launched from the Dauntless, accelerating toward the Maw on a trajectory that would drive it deep into the planet's core. Flight time, 18 minutes. Sarah opened a channel to all ground teams. This is Admiral Pine. I'm sorry, we can't extract you in time. The torpedo is deployed. You have 18 minutes. Silence answered her. Then Rita's voice came back calm and steady. Understood, Admiral. We knew the mission parameters. Don't worry about us, just make sure this matters. It will, Sarah promised, her voice breaking. You're saving everything. Everyone will know what you did here. Rita and her team kept running. Around them, the Maw convulsed, sensing the torpedo driving toward its core. The very planet tried to expel the weapon, but human engineering had anticipated that. The torpedo burrowed deeper, unstoppable. Lieutenant Iris Yamada was supposed to be providing fighter cover for the fleet. Instead, she saw the ground teams running and made a decision. This is Lieutenant Yamada. I'm going down for extraction. Negative, Lieutenant, Kellen ordered. Your fighter can't handle that many personnel. Watch me, Iris replied. She dove toward the surface, pushing her fighter past safe limits. The atmospheric entry burned away her shields and scorched her hull, but she made it. She touched down near Rita's team with 8 minutes remaining. Everyone in, Iris shouted through external speakers. And I mean everyone. 15 Marines crammed into a fighter designed for one person. They packed into every available space, strapped down with cargo netting, held onto each other in the tiny craft. It was insane. It couldn't possibly work. Iris launched anyway. Her fighter struggled under the weight, engines screaming in protest. She cleared the atmosphere with 4 minutes to spare and accelerated away from the Maw as fast as her overloaded craft could manage. On other parts of the planet, similar desperate rescues played out. Some succeeded. Many didn't. Brave people made impossible choices and lived or died by fractions of seconds. Commander Leo Grant stayed on the Retribution until the end. He kept firing weapons until the power failed. Then he recorded a final message for his daughter. Hey kiddo, Dad loves you. Remember that. And remember that everything we did here, all the fighting and sacrifice, it was to give you a future. Be brave. Be kind. And know that I died doing something that mattered. Take care of your mom for me. He sealed the message and sent it on a tight beam toward Earth, along with his tactical logs and a recommendation that several of his crew be promoted posthumously. Then he sat back in his command chair and waited. The Starkiller torpedo reached the Maw's core. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The planet's internal structure destabilized. Core temperature spiked to levels that no biological tissue could survive. The Maw screamed, a psychic wail that resonated across the quantum entanglement network connecting all Ravagers. Then it died. The planet tore itself apart from within, continents of flesh rupturing, oceans boiling away, spawning chambers collapsing. The destruction expanded outward in a sphere of annihilation that consumed the entire world and everything near it, including the Retribution and Commander Leo Grant. The shockwave hit the rest of the fleet. Ships that had pulled back to minimum safe distance weathered the impact, shields flaring. Ships that had stayed too close trying to give cover for the ground teams were destroyed or crippled. The human ships Valor and Hammer died instantly. The Union vessels that had been covering the retreat lost 287 ships. When the destruction finally ended, the Maw was gone. Just scattered debris and the fading echoes of a planet that had birthed nightmares. And with it, every Ravager in the system died too. The hive mind that connected them all had been based in the Maw. Without it, the bioship simply stopped functioning and drifted lifeless in space. "Casualty report," Sarah requested, her voice hollow. The numbers came in slowly. 19 human ships destroyed, 4,847 dead, 12,231 wounded. Union losses were even worse. 287 ships destroyed, 89,000 casualties. But they had won. The Ravagers were finished. Their homeworld was destroyed, their fleet dead, their threat ended forever. The surviving fleet regrouped in orbit of Pella, the world they had first saved. Memorial services were held for the fallen. Union and human ceremonies blended together, different species honoring the dead in their own ways, but united in grief and gratitude. High Chancellor Oren addressed the combined fleet. "What we have accomplished here will be remembered for all time. We faced extinction, and we survived. Not because any one species was strong enough alone, but because we stood together. The Galactic Union welcomes humanity as full members. Your quarantine is lifted, your people are heroes." Admiral Sarah Pine retired after the ceremony. She couldn't continue commanding after what she'd done. The Starkiller torpedo had been necessary, but she couldn't forget the ground teams she'd sacrificed. She returned to Earth and spent the rest of her life teaching at the military academy, making sure future officers understood the true cost of command. Sergeant Rita Barnes survived, thanks to Iris's impossible rescue. She was awarded the highest military honors both from Earth and the Union. She accepted them quietly, knowing too many others deserved them more. She adopted several orphans from Union worlds destroyed by Ravagers and raised them on Earth, teaching them that strength should protect, never threaten. Lieutenant Iris Yamada became the youngest person ever promoted to squadron commander. Her stunt at the Maw became legendary, and she used that fame to push for better rescue equipment and procedures. No one else would be left behind if she could help it. Ambassador Tella became the first non-human granted full Earth citizenship. She spent the rest of her life building bridges between species, making sure the cooperation born from war continued in peace. Her statue stood in the Union Council chamber, wings spread in welcome. Commander Leo Grant's daughter received his final message and his medals. She read his tactical logs and learned about everything he'd done. When she grew up, she became a xenobiologist, studying alien species to understand them rather than fight them. She named her first discovery after her father, the Leo Grant Memorial Algae, a bioluminescent species that brought light to dark places. On Pella, a monument was erected. It showed a human and a Varani standing side by side, looking toward the stars together. The inscription read, "They came from different worlds, but they fought for the same future. May we never forget the price of peace or the courage of those who paid it." Years later, new Union species would join the galactic community and ask about the humans. Why were they treated with such respect despite their fearsome reputation? Why did Union worlds welcome them when they were clearly dangerous? The answer was always the same. Yes, humans were dangerous. Yes, they brought total annihilation when they fought, but they fought for others, not themselves. They risked everything to protect people they barely knew. They were the Deathworlders who answered a desperate call and saved a galaxy. And in the end, that's what mattered most. Not the fear they inspired, but the hope they represented. The universe could be hostile, but it could also be kind. It could produce nightmares, but it could also produce heroes. And sometimes, the monsters everyone feared turned out to be the guardians everyone needed. The Ravagers were gone. The war was over. And humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or outcasts, but as protectors. The Deathworlders who would fight for anyone who needed help, no matter the cost. That was the legacy of those who answered the SOS. That was the meaning of total annihilation, not destroying everything, but destroying everything that threatened the innocent. 10 years after the war ended, Tella stood before the Galactic Council one final time before her retirement. She had spent a decade building the alliance between humanity and the Union into something unbreakable. Now she wanted to make sure future generations understood what had really happened. When we sent that distress call to Earth, we expected monsters, Tella said, her voice steady and clear. We were terrified of what we were inviting into our space. 800 years of quarantine had taught us that humans were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. We believed they would bring chaos and destruction. She paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from 847 worlds. Many were species who had never known war before the Ravagers came. They lived in peace because humans had fought for them. They did bring destruction, Tella continued. They brought total annihilation to our enemies. They brought weapons we couldn't imagine and tactics we couldn't comprehend. They brought a capacity for violence that still frightens many of us. But they also brought something else. Something we had forgotten in 12,000 years of peace. High Chancellor Orin, now ancient and dimming with age, flickered with interest. What did they bring, Ambassador? The will to fight for what matters, Tella said simply. They taught us that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of people willing to protect it. They showed us that being civilized doesn't mean being helpless. It means choosing when to fight and what to fight for. She activated a holographic display showing the human memorial on Pella. The statue of Human and Varani standing together gleamed in the afternoon sun of that recovered world. The humans lost 4,847 people in our war. Every single one of them was a volunteer who chose to fight for strangers. Commander Leo Grant died keeping his weapons firing so others could escape. Hundreds of Marines like Sergeant Rita Barnes went into missions knowing they might not return. Lieutenant Iris Yamada violated direct orders to save people she'd never met. Tella's feathers ruffled with emotion. These were not the actions of monsters. These were the actions of heroes. Yes, humans are dangerous. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, and they became stronger for it. But that danger is directed outward toward threats, toward enemies of peace, toward anything that would harm the innocent. A young council member from a species that had joined after the war raised a tentacle hesitantly. But Ambassador, what if someday humans turn that violence toward us? What if they decide to conquer rather than protect? That's a fair question, Tella acknowledged. And I've thought about it for 10 years. Here's what I learned. Humanity's capacity for violence comes from the same place as their capacity for compassion. They fight fiercely because they love fiercely. They destroy threats because they protect what they care about. As long as we remain worthy of their friendship, we have nothing to fear. She looked directly at the young council member. But you want a guarantee, don't you? Some assurance that they'll never turn on us? I can't give you that. No one can guarantee the actions of any species forever. What I can tell you is this. In our darkest hour, when extinction was certain, humans came. They bled for us. They died for us. They asked for nothing except our friendship in return. Orin's glow strengthened, a sign of agreement. The ambassador speaks truth. I voted to contact Earth when we were desperate. I feared what would happen, but I fear more what would have happened if we hadn't called them. We would all be dead now. So yes, Tella concluded, humans brought total annihilation to the Ravagers, to the threat, to everything that wanted to devour us, and in doing so they gave us all a future. The question isn't whether humans are dangerous. They are. The question is whose side are they on, and I am grateful every single day that they're on ours. The council chamber fell silent. Then slowly, representatives began signaling approval in their various ways. Lights flickering, tentacles waving, wings spreading. 1,000 different species united in one understanding. The Deathworlders were their allies, their friends, their protectors. And somewhere in Sol System, on the blue and green world that had forged the galaxy's fiercest guardians, humanity continued its watch, ready to answer if the call came again, ready to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves, because that's what Deathworlders did. They survived the unsurvivable, endured the unendurable, and protected those they cared about with everything they had. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, Not just their strength, but their choice to use that strength for others. And the galaxy was better for it.